it doesn't bring votes, but it should. It really should. So also we need to do some pedagogy and to some heart touching on the voters, because we see that the message is not reaching the big majorities.
Please, sir. First row.
Thank you. Great panel. My name is Markus. I'm a professor of international relations at a technical university in Germany. Mr. Solheim, your input was very refreshing. You talked a lot about India. You talked a lot about China. But what about the relationship between the two of them? Will we have a competition? Do you anticipate that there will be a new great game which those two countries will dominate in the green transition? Thank you.
I'll leave this. The good news is that the relationship is now drastically improving. President Xi and Prime Minister Modi met 2 weeks ago, and they agreed to try to calm the border tension in the Himalayas. So I anticipate that it will improve. The relations have basically been frozen between China and India for the last 5 years. I think we will now see many more tourists coming, exchange of students, applications, journalists traveling. We will see a drastic improvement of the relationship between China and India. But it's not like China and India will start loving each other. The Chinese and the Indian culture is different. In my view, the Chinese and Indian culture is more different from each other than it are from the European Christian culture. We see them from Europe as quite similar, they're different. As example, China is the least religious place on planet Earth. Nothing to the Communist Party. It's been for 2,500 years. Much less interest in the region. India is the most religious place on planet Earth. It's front and center in the life of nearly all Indians. So they will not start loving each other. But what neither of them will do will be to be the puppet of someone else. You have a lot of people in Washington believing that, India will be our guy in Asia, our game with China. Prime Minister Modi has a three-pronged foreign policy. India first, India second, India third. And in that, they are ready to work with everyone. And I think we see an improvement of the Chinese-Indian relationship. It will be a marriage of convenience, not a marriage of love.
Hello. Good afternoon, and thank you for this amazing panel. I'm Mariana, I'm from Portugal, and I have an NGO that is focused on climate law, and we've been doing an investigation on the recent lithium mining projects that we have in Portugal. And I heard what Dr. Maria said about not repeating the same mistakes that we did with the fossil fuels on the past. And I've been seeing a lot of mistakes, especially legal mistakes, that we've been doing with this mining process. We've been seeing violation of public access to information, to be involved in the democratic process. We have right now in Portugal prosecutors saying there's a lot of illegal projects, there's a lot of corruption. Our government fell last year because of scandal corruption based on hydrogen and lithium. So there's a lot of issues going on, but the projects keep going. All the population is against, and they don't want money. Like, they don't want money at all. They just want us to live their life. So my question is, how can we address this issue and not repeat the same mistakes? And the second question is, should we be quantifying how much lithium, for example, do we need for an energy transition? Because we don't have like a number, we have resources. So do we need a number? Should we quantify this? Thank you.
And can you just remind us which country you come from? Portugal. Okay.
Right.
On the first part of the question, do we have any? I think the issue of that was corruption, correct?
Corruption. Yeah.
Maria.
But perhaps I can say something. Huh?
I think generally speaking, you said
Well, I think your point it's very important. Regardless of the very specific cases, I think we need a code of conduct. We need shared rules. We need universal standards. We need to make operational the precautionary principle. We need to understand exactly what are the technologies available to minimize the environmental and social impacts of, because extraction is extraction. Extractive economies are extractive economies, but we didn't do it well. I'm speaking again from a first-hand experience in Ecuador, what oil companies did to the environment and the health of the people on the ground. The Texaco Chevron case, I think, is well known, and we know the cost of that. We cannot repeat that in terms of environmental standards, in terms of human health standards, but also in terms of what we learn in modalities of contracts, for example. So I would say that there are ongoing processes out there that we should pay attention to. Um, Under the umbrella of the Human Rights Council, there is a new treaty that is being negotiated. It's called the Treaty on Transnational Corporations and Human Rights. As you know, the right to a safe, healthy environment is now part of commitments of member states. I think these issues have to come into play. So, highest environmental and social standards, and that includes, of course, a prior consultation with people. It's really not easy. Just let's think about the countries in the global majority, uh, in the part of the global majority that have so many pressures, for their development needs. It's a tough choice, but you can do it, but do it well and do it better than what we did with oil and gas in the global south. And of course, I'm not teaching lessons, but I worked for government for 14 years in different capacities. Sometimes they're very, very tough choices, especially when there is no international solidarity, when there is no proper tech transfer, when there is no proper resources. And here in this COP, we have the opportunity to turn the tide. And if we have an NCQG, we hopefully the first day an agreement on Article 6 on carbon markets, which was good news, I think. But this is the space, this is the place, but we have to look at the overall multilateral space as well. I'm looking at what happened in Cali the previous week and what is going to happen very soon with the desertification convention.
But I think an important point that the lady stressed that you referred to, Maria, is how we build trust also among citizens. And so I thank you for that question, because I think often we forget about it because we think, the right pathway is there and we just don't want to involve citizens in the discussion. I know we have other questions, but the one thing we haven't so much. That's fine. I really love my coach there. I really should work with them on the longer term. It's how can Europe really honestly get inspiration from what works, not just in Washington, but possibly also in Beijing? Because I somehow want to make that Eric and Tony leave as good friends. So I want to make sure they find some common agreement.
Well, that can happen if Norway joins the EU. But no, but seriously,
On a piece of paper, and we have a desk
we
over
got
there,
Article
so
49.
it's never too late.
No, but serious, because we've been speaking about EVs. I don't want anyone to leave without the impression that the EU is doing its utmost to navigate its relationship with China. And I can say that China is doing its utmost to navigate its relationship with the EU. We have an EU China high level dialogue between the European Commission and China. We have all kinds of technical workshops. We try to go into the provinces, try to establish where can we help. We can also support. For instance, China is very interested in our emissions trading system. If the Chinese were started with their trading system, if they progress, and they will progress, it will be the biggest trading system in the world. And I can tell you, once they do that, it will also be the biggest decarbonization machine in the world. And so we're talking to them, and they're happy to talk to us. So yes, and I think this goes both ways. It should go both ways. My only point was we have different systems, we have sometimes different interests, and I think as long as countries and we try to navigate these as best we can. And in a good relationship, you also are able to openly speak about these differences without it blowing up.
Well, I know there are many questions, and I need to apologize to the audience, but I have very, very good friends at UNFCCC, and I want them to remain friends, and they asked me to wrap up. So I need to follow the rules, and this will be a wrap up. I think you stressed, Tony, how important the narrative was. I think we all agree that it's crucial to the urgency, but it's also important not. And I don't know whether my coach's spirit is still up, but I still cannot handle that mic even after 60 minutes of panel. So I really want to thank very warmly our three panelists for exploration in geopolitical risks and the energy transition. And I now need to set you free because I know you have very important meetings and negotiations going on. And I apologize to those who could not ask their questions, but there will be opportunities to engage in one-to-one. So thank you very much again, and thank you to the UNFCCC for hosting that discussion. Thank you.
Mənim pişiyimin qaməti mənə sevinç verir. Onun daim bu cür olmağını istərdim. Onu Proplanın yüksək keyfiyyətli yeməkləri ilə qidalandırıram. Proplan, görkəmli heyvan sahiblərindən qeyri-adi pişikləri üçün.
Oui, oui. Parce que nous sommes dans une situation émergence, disons ça. Alors alerte déjà sur cette destination. Dans ce cas-là, qu'est-ce que vous attendez, les attentes?
Je pense qu'on va avancer surtout au niveau des financements. Ouais. La COP29, c'est vraiment une grande discussion sur les financements. C'est ça qui bloque en fait. Hein,
le financement,
on a l'argent pour faire ça.
On a l'argent.
On a l'argent, on a le savoir-faire, la technologie, on a tout ce qu'il faut, quoi. Mais il faut s'y mettre d'accord. Donc, ce qu'on va faire voir ici, à Bakou, ça sera très important pour l'année prochaine au Brésil. Donc,
ça sera une base, c'est ça?
C'est ça la base. Donc, l'année prochaine, ça sera vraiment la COP de l'implémentation, quoi. La COP de l'action. Parce qu'en fait, on n'a plus de temps à perdre. La température de la planète, comme vous savez, est déjà montée au-delà de 1,5 degrés.
5 degrés, voilà.
Donc, on n'a plus de temps, quoi.
Parce
donc,
que c'est plus que danger si on compare,
c'est surtout parce
analyse.
Oui, c'est surtout parce qu'en fait, on ne sait pas si on va revenir. Quand on dépasse 1,5, on ne sait pas si on va vraiment revenir à ce qui était avant. Voilà. Donc au début de la révolution industrielle, par exemple. Mais on sait que...
Le maximum de planètes, c'est, je pense, que 2 degrés, c'est ça ou bien
oui, le maximum à la limite, quoi.
C'est la limite, c'est ça.
la limite, on ne peut pas dépasser ça.
Le but, c'est baisser jusqu'à 1,5 degrés, c'est ça.
Chaque jour qu'on gagne de cette bataille, ça sera important pour réduire le temps qu'on va revenir, on va essayer de revenir à ce qu'on était avant.
Ouais. Ici, donc, je sais que hier, on avait signé déjà un accord. Il s'agissait d'un accord sur le crédit donc de carbone. Alors, c'est quoi l'importance pour le début, pour le start, disons comme ça?
C'est très important parce qu'en fait, ça donne la base, tous les bases pour les discussions des marchés dans chaque pays, quoi. Voilà. Parce que ce qu'on a fait ici, c'était dans les premiers jours, c'était super, quoi. C'est une espèce de signalisation, je dirais. Ce qu'on a fait, c'est justement de dire, tenez, voici la base, c'est sur ça qu'on va travailler. Et chaque pays peut donc développer ses propres marchés, mais un ton qui est contribution à ce qui a été décidé dans le global. Ça, ouais. C'est important.
Je veux savoir, donc vous êtes en Azerbaïdjan, sur la présidence de notre pays. Comment tout est organisé ici et surtout, ça sera intéressant d'avoir votre point de vue.
Ah ouais, c'est très bien. Moi, je pense que c'est très bien organisé. Bakou, en fait, c'est une très jolie ville. Je suis enchanté, en fait, et les gens sont très sympathiques. Je pense que c'était un bon choix, en fait, de venir ici, à la COP, parce qu'en fait, à Azerbaïdjan, parce qu'en fait, si on veut vraiment discuter avec les gens qui ont le pouvoir de décider, c'est une bonne place, je dirais. Donc, je suis vraiment ravi d'être ici et j'espère qu'on avance encore plus parce qu'on a encore une bonne semaine devant nous et je garde toujours l'espoir qu'on puisse avancer de plus en plus.
Oui, l'Azerbaïdjan, son leader, M. Ilham Aliyev, vous avez vu son discours hier. Alors, l'Azerbaïdjan appelle la communauté internationale d'unir, vous savez, les forces. Alors, comme on peut dire, en commune, nous pouvons changer quelque chose. Quelle est votre attitude sur ce message de notre leader?
C'est un message très important en fait. Donc, et je pense que certains pays qui ne sont pas tout à fait très développés, mais qui ne sont pas non plus des pays assez en voie de développement, l'Azerbaïdjan, c'est très bien, quoi. Il est très bien placé dans ces milieux termes, vous voyez. Donc il peut très bien, comme le Brésil d'ailleurs, hein,
ouais.
Il peut très bien faire le lien entre les deux extrêmes. Donc les rôles des pays qui sont au milieu, au noyau de la communauté sont très importants. C'est pour ça que je suis content qu'on puisse venir ici, parce que l'Azerbaïdjan, il vraiment représente ces pays qui peuvent faire le lien entre les deux pays, les pays les plus riches et les pays qui sont encore en train de se développer.
Oui, merci beaucoup, monsieur. Et donc, surtout, il y a des initiatives de notre pays, comme le président de ce COP. Par exemple, parmi cette initiative, il y avait d'aider aux États d'îles, petits États. Ouais. Pour ça parce qu'ils sont en train de disparition. Donc, il y a ce problème aussi là.
Oui, bien sûr, c'est les CID. Les CID, c'est un très bon exemple d'organisation. Vous voyez? Parce qu'ils se sont mis ensemble depuis assez longtemps d'ailleurs. Hein?
Bien sûr.
Donc ils ont beaucoup avancé dans leurs demandes, dans leurs besoins, parce qu'en fait, comme vous avez dit, ils sont vraiment en train de disparaître, certains pays du Sud. Mais ils ont très bien montré que c'est possible de faire des choses, de faire avancer, y avoir de la voix. Donc, on est organisé.
Maintenant, nous parlons, discutons entre nous. Il y a leur conférence aussi de ces îles ici. Oui, oui. Qu'est-ce que vous souhaitez?
Ben, je souhaite très, très succès dans tout ce qu'ils ont en train de faire. Parce que pas seulement l'exemple, comme je dis, je commentais, mais aussi parce qu'ils ont vraiment besoin des actions, quoi. Donc, je crois qu'ils sont dans la bonne voie.
OK. Je vous remercie. Peut-être à la fin de notre émission, vous voulez dire quelque chose directement à nos téléspectateurs.
Moi, je dirais surtout aux jeunes, aux plus jeunes, qui gardent bien l'espoir et il faut absolument s'y battre pour les pays et pour les planètes, quoi. Donc, vous êtes vraiment l'espoir de la planète. Donc, tenez ensemble et venons rejoindre cette bataille. C'est important, mais c'est une bataille pour les prochaines générations. Pour vos enfants, pour vos petits-enfants, enfin, pour la planète.
OK, merci beaucoup, Monsieur Araújo Muassi. Braziliyanın iqlim dəyişikliyi üzrə Qlobal Agentliyinin direktoru, əziz tamaşaçılar, proqramımızın qonağı oldu. Bu pasientə juste je traduis ce que vous avez dit. Yəni cənab Muassi ən sonda nə dedi? Bildirdi ki, mən gənclərə üzümü tuturam, onlara müraciət edirəm. Planetimizin gələcəyi sizsiniz. Sizin bu mənada, yəni iqlim dəyişikliyi ilə mübarizə məsələlərində fəal olmağınız gərəkdir. Azərbaycan gənclərinə mən bu müraciəti edirəm dedi. Sizin və sizdən sonra gələn nəsillər üçün bu məsələ çox önəmlidir, çox vacibdir. Ona görə də bunda sizi fəallığa çağırıram. O həmçinin Azərbaycanın sədrliyi haqqında fikirlərini söylədi. Yüksək səviyyədə tədbirin keçirildiyini ifadə etdi. Azərbaycanın təşəbbüslərini dəstəklədiyini, xüsusilə də kiçik ada dövlətlərinə dəstək verilməsi, kasıb ölkələrə dəstək verilməsi ilə bağlı bizim ölkəmizin irəli sürdüyü təkliflərə müsbət yanaşdığını ifadə etdi. Həmçinin bütövlükdə bu konferans haqqında COP barəsində ümidli olduğunu dedi. Dünən imzalanmış karbon krediti haqqındakı sənədi yüksək qiymətləndirdi. Vurğuladı ki, bu sənəd baza olacaq və əslində COP28, COP29, yəni bu iki tədbir, xüsusilə də Bakıda keçirilən bu tədbir maliyyələşmə nöqteyi nəzərindən, finans baxımından əhəmiyyət kəsb edir. Çünki dedi ki, finans var və onun necə tətbiq olunmasından söhbət gedir. Hazırda məhz ölkələr Bakıda toplaşaraq onu müzakirə edirlər. COP30-da isə artıq tətbiq etmə həyata keçirilməlidir. Bu mənada mən və bütün bəşəriyyət məhz bunu gözləyir. Bugün artıq iqlim dəyişikliyi elə bir səviyyəyə gəlib çatıb ki, karbon emissiyalarının atmosferə buraxılması istilik dərəcəsinin 5 dərəcə artığa qədər yüksəlməsinə səbəb olub ki, bu planetin limiti maksimum 2 dərəcədir. Ona görə də bu baxımdan verilən qərarlar artıq kritik əhəmiyyətə malikdir. Bir an öncə, necə deyərlər, həmin qərarlar qəbul olunmalıdır ki, yəni bəşəriyyəti biz iqlim dəyişikliyi məsələlərində ki, bu yaranmış real təhlükələrdən xilas edə bilək bildirdi. Paytaxtımız haqqında Bakı çox gözəl şəhərdir. Nə yaxşı ki, Azərbaycanda bu tədbir keçirildi. İnsanlarınız qonaqpərvərdir. Hər birinizə təşəkkür edirəm. Azərbaycanı çox bəyəndim, söylədim. Araújo Moacir Braziliyanın iqlim dəyişikliyi üzrə Qlobal Agentliyinin direktoru. Merci beaucoup encore une fois.
Avec plaisir, c'était un vrai plaisir. Merci.
Bəli, həmkarım Elnar Məmmədlinin Bakı stadionundan daha bir maraqlı müsahibəsi idi. Həqiqətən də Braziliyalı qonaq Bakı haqqında çox yüksək düşüncədədir və COP29 samitinə məhz Bakının ev sahibliyi etməsini əlbəttə ki, bütün qonaqlar elə başda BMT-nin baş katibi Antonio Guterres olmaqla bütün qonaqlar yüksək dəyərləndirirlər və bu da Azərbaycanın məhz bu tədbirə bütün təzyiqlərə rəğmən yüksək səviyyədə ev sahibliyi etdiyini bir daha dünyaya sübut etmiş oldu. Bəli, hörmətli tamaşaçılar, BMT-nin iqlim dəyişmələri üzrə çərçivə konvensiyasının tərəflər konferansının 29-cu sessiyasında 3-cü günündə artıq biraz öncə möhtəbər bir samitdə baş tutdu ki, bu samitin adı və çağırışları xüsusi diqqət çəkirdi ki, inkişaf etməkdə olan kiçik ada dövlətləri samiti adlanırdı ki, bu da əlbəttə ki, daha zəif olan, daha gücsüz olan müstəmləkə ölkələrdən xüsusilə də yardımların olmasına dövlət başçımızın çağırışlarını biz eşitmiş olduq və əlbəttə ki, necə deyərlər, zəifin yanında olmaq, məzlumun yanında olmaq güclü ölkələrə məxsusdur və elə Azərbaycan da bu çağırışları ilə məhz bu samitinin daha qlobal problemlərin həllinə yönləndirməklə bir daha qalib ölkə kimi, güclü ölkə kimi özünün gücünü nümayiş etdirmiş oldu, diplomatik gücünü nümayiş etdirmiş oldu. Əlbəttə ki, dövlət başçımızın bu samitdə çıxışından bir hissəni izləməyi.
The importance of the technical cooperation. We talked about difficult project, difficult jurisdiction as well. Can you be maybe a little bit more specific in terms of the specific role that you can be playing?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I think the financial cooperation, the technical cooperation, they can go hand in hand, and they should actually, to really make a difference here. And the services that we provide to our partner countries, they're usually based on international best practice and standards, but, and this is our experience, they need to be adjusted to the local conditions. And so we also usually help our partners to better understand the opportunities and the challenges around green hydrogen, and that this is all still new, yeah. So it needs also a lot of understanding and explanation. What we then can do is help with the strategy development for this new sector. So the specific technologies and markets where the partner economy might develop an edge. So each country will looks at that with their own perspective. And what are the time horizons? What are the needs? What needs to be done? What has to be mobilized? And then you mentioned the regulatory and legislative framework. This is in our experience something that is essential. It really, uncertainty is something that investors don't like at all. So a solid regulatory framework with the right incentives, a framework that is enabling is important. So based on smart policies, and here we think our advisory with the government in the ministries is really, really helpful. And then another point is then, of course, the concrete project identification and development. And here we often work together with partners such as the European Investment Bank to really create this pipeline of bankable projects where then the financing can go in and be most efficient. Yeah, not to waste time and money, but really go in to the point where the money is needed to bring this forward. And what we also do is actively support the building up and management of global knowledge about green hydrogen. And here we have the so-called Power to X hub, Global Power to X hub, based in Berlin and Brussels, but working globally and bringing all this knowledge together. There's an abundance of knowledge which is created here, and you may also find it helpful to consult this knowledge. So I really encourage you to look at the website of the Power to X hub.
Thanks a lot. Piero, can you build on that in terms of which are, from your perspective, the industries that are going to lead? What are the main financial, non-financial issues that they're going to see? Katja, you were talking about the enablers like policy, smart policy, predictable policies. There's as well the unintended consequences of policies that we've seen most recently. What's your perspective?
Well, I think for what concern the main financial challenges, I would say that the colleagues has already mentioned them. Obviously, obtaining funding remain a high barrier, and both for securing public funding and private one. It's right to say that applying for public funds is difficult, because there are complex rules and high resources to follow. All the steps are required. So, well, for this reason, many of the players that started to work on hydrogen, after a while they didn't go ahead. They stopped on this. When we talk about financial challenges, I would like to make a reference to a report that has been produced a few months ago by the Clean Hydrogen Partnership of the European Commission. And, several non-financial challenges has been identified. Well, first of all, feedstock. Feedstock has been mentioned that solar is a continuous source of energy, but unfortunately we don't have everywhere solar. And delays in build-out renewables can be really a trouble for all the process. Then also from the demand side, it's difficult to conclude off-take contracts with partners of industry, power and heat, and transport. And then there are all the aspects on regulation and standards that must be improved. First of all, we have lack of experiences by the authority. Then we miss green hydrogen product standardization and certification. And finally, we miss supportive policies that make difficult to reach a competitive clean hydrogen price. And then we have to take into account constraints that are all over the supply chain, taking mainly into account the global geostrategic disruption that we have nowadays.
Thanks a lot. I will go back to you, Dario. We are here in Baku. We have been discussing about some projects in different geographies. From your perspective, let's give us an example between Central Asia and Europe. These projects differ, and what are the type of issues that you face in different geographies?
Thank you. Indeed, the projects that you see on on paper in Central Asia are all for exports to the EU, which for us it creates a little bit, it poses a little bit of problems. The first one is long distance transport of hydrogen. I mean, I think it's, and we heard that it's not only Central Asia. We heard previously about projects in Africa and elsewhere. Hydrogen is a very volatile molecule, very difficult to transport. It's an indirect greenhouse gas, so leaks of hydrogen across the infrastructure are serious, need to be considered when looking at transport. It needs a whole new infrastructure. There's a lot of discussions around refitting gas pipelines for hydrogen transport, and we know what the technical difficulties are for that. And so what we're saying to these countries instead is, why don't you use the green hydrogen, because they are, Central Asia, and they got plenty of sun and plenty of wind and plenty of space. They have a little bit less water, it's true, because water is an issue in certain countries, but certainly they have some of the other ingredients. And why don't you use that green hydrogen to produce green products, green fertilizer, green steel, and then export that to the EU? First of all, your added value increases. Second, you are outcompeting the CBAM. Because you are basically exporting green products into the EU, and you don't have the same issues, long-distance transport issues that you would have with hydrogen as exporting hydrogen. So we are supporters of the concept of hydrogen valleys or hydrogen hubs, where there is renewable energy potential for power generation, and then you cluster industries there to exploit that. And so you cut the distance between consumptions and demand. You create that long-term contract, long-term purchase agreement between demand and supply, that you need to make sure that the investment takes place, because if you're investing there as well as an industry, you are investing for the long term. So it creates the conditions to do that, and then it avoids some of the pitfalls, some of the challenges that hydrogen has for example, what I said on the. So that's what we've been saying. Although they all look at exporting into Europe, there is some member states Germany has a hydrogen diplomacy, for example, has offices around the world to work on what they call hydrogen diplomacy. So this creates a kind of a dichotomy of where these countries should be going in terms of looking at the potential for hydrogen in their economies.
Excellent. I think you're opening the door to because of the classification that is required to discuss about hydrogen, to that challenge, which I hope we can come back on in a couple of minutes. From a World Bank perspective, Demetrios, I was wondering, we started to mention water availability, land use, the well-being of local communities. There's a lot of possible negative impact on the nature and society. What's your perspective on that? And how can that be mitigated? And how much of a priority needs to be as well in that dialogue?
So I think if we're going to be talking about impacts, it's important that we put them in a comparative manner, right? To the extent that hydrogen will be replacing coal, it will be replacing natural gas, and it will be replacing fuel oils. If you compare the impacts of producing green hydrogen with the impacts of producing any of the other alternatives, there is no comparison. Green hydrogen is by far much more benign. Now, when it comes to the question of how do we make sure that wherever hydrogen is produced, we should be having a fair deal for the communities and the people where hydrogen is produced. This is absolutely something that the World Bank supports, and it is absolutely something that we promote when we look at these projects. Coming to the question of the use of water, a couple of points there. I think this is a little bit of an overrated concern. For sure, you need hydrogen if you will be for sure you need water if you will be electrolyzing it so that you produce hydrogen. But in many occasions, water is abundant as seawater. And again, in our analysis, what drives everything and what will make at the end of the day hydrogen viable is a lower cost of electricity. If you have lower cost of electricity, then you can easily desalinate water and you can manage the impacts of desalination as well. Desalination is happening at a large extent around the world, and actually the world needs even more clean water. So in many of the countries where we looked at, I think you mentioned Namibia earlier, the case of Morocco, the case of Mauritania, actually if they could have investments for large-scale hydrogen, they would be benefiting from more available desalinated water. And I think this is the way that we should be thinking about it. Yes, there are impacts, but the impacts definitely compared with any other fossil fuel are absolutely lower in terms of intensity, and they can also be managed much better. So that's the way we look at it in the World Bank, and we feel that the main challenge still remains how quickly can we scale up and how quickly we can bring costs down.
Thank you. Dario, I'm tempted to come back to you again to build up on this classification discussion, because I think it's a really good build up on what we just discussed. I mean, the carbon intensity of hydrogen depends of obviously the sourcing of the energy that you need to produce it. Can you talk to us a little bit about this color classification? To a certain extent, how much of that makes sense, and should it be considered looking forward, or should we look at it in a different way?
So we don't. We at the Economic Commission for Europe at the UN, we don't use color coding. I mean, we gave away, and there are a number. The EU has come up with a set of metrics and principles for the definition of, let's call, green hydrogen. We prefer to use low carbon hydrogen because we don't only look at renewable energy, we look as well potentially using nuclear, for example, and under certain circumstances. So what we're trying, we did already a first classification according to the GSG emitted, the carbon footprint emitted during the production. Then to that you have to add obviously the carbon footprint on transport, because depending on where you want to move that hydrogen form, and then the indirect and all the issues around what I mentioned before about the leaks when transporting hydrogen, for example, as well all the material that you use for its production. You know, how the electrolyzers, etc., how the water gets pumped, and all of these issues. So the question around the environmental footprint of hydrogen production is very large. It's not only about the source of electricity and what is that, the impact is larger than that, particularly if you're looking at, as Demetrios said, you know, scaling it up largely and using it, you know, for a variety of uses and transporting over long distances. And I think having a clear view and a standardized view across the world in terms of measuring what that impact is, and having, you know, the famous certificate of origins will facilitate trade in hydrogen, which is necessary, particularly if you're looking at trade between countries, etc. And so that is the next step that we want to approach. We only started the first step, then the second step is to define all the other elements around understanding the full environmental footprint, because Demetrios is totally right. There's no comparison between the production of hydrogen and the use of fossil fuels in terms of impact on the environment. Absolutely, yes. But what you want to make sure is that the hydrogen that you produce is actually, you know exactly what is its environmental footprint, and you mitigate all the different aspects around that environmental impact that hydrogen has, because anything has an environmental impact. You know, building a solar panel has an environmental impact. What you want to do is mitigate that environmental impact as much as possible. And to do that, you have a full, comprehensive life cycle approach to how you look at hydrogen.
Thanks a lot. I would like to go back to Stephen and Katja, and maybe I think the learnings from the discussion that we have had, probably you need a transformative business model for this project to make sense. You need an enabling regulatory framework. You need some type of stable, sustained demand. You have to rely as well on the scalable supply chain. And most importantly, you need innovative ways to blend different sources of capital. So if I looked at some of the projects that exist as of today, the H2 Green Steel, for example, in Scandinavia, and if we speak most particularly about the work that you're doing in Namibia, could you tell us a bit more about the ecosystem required for such level of complexity to be able to be delivered? And what are, from your perspective, the minimum criteria that needs to be achieved for these projects to take off?
Yeah, this was actually a letter of intent that we signed with the Namibian government in the margins of COP29, actually 2 years ago. And at the same time, actually, President von der Leyen signed with the Namibian government an MOU on renewable hydrogen and critical raw materials as well. And we have been engaging with them for the last 2 years. It was a 500 million, potentially up to 500 million of financing for the sector, and well, renewable investments more generally, actually. But we have been working with them hard to address the very scale of the ecosystem that you're talking about, because there's so many things that need to fall into place. We're not quite there yet, but we are having those discussions with them. I mean, they do have very significant renewable sources, of course, and they do actually aim to play an enabling role for the region as a whole, not just for Namibia. And I think it's fair to say that from a Team Europe perspective, there's a European interest there as well. But also there's a real development objective here as well, because it's got the potential to create a very significant job base, promote industrial development and so on. So we are working hard on this, and we hope to see something coming through soon.
Thanks a lot. Katja, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, with pleasure. I think the ecosystem is really something that needs special attention. And actually, we work extensively with the companies in the private sector that are really key players in hydrogen and Power-to-X projects, and they play an important role when ramping up the market, especially in emerging and developing economies. And companies, they cannot be left alone, but they need support when entering these new markets, because they usually don't have the market knowledge. They are in London, Berlin, or elsewhere, but this is what the kind of support they need. Many questions, and technical cooperation programs can actually be very helpful here and make a huge difference in facilitating this private sector engagement and mobilization. So what we do is that on behalf of the German federal government, we offer a whole range of offers for companies, for business associations, and also economic chambers to engage in the dialogue with the governments in the emerging and developing countries. One of those examples is the Green, the Hydrogen Business Alliance, and here we facilitate business to business, but also business to government dialogue through a dozen of bilateral climate and energy partnerships, which we're coordinating on behalf of the federal German government. And here, some examples are countries such as Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, South Africa, Brazil, and also India. And some specific investment projects, they can also be pre-developed, actually, as I mentioned before. And this can be facilitated up all the way to bankability in direct cooperation with individual companies. And we do that in several of our programs. H2Up, Get Pro, and other green hydrogen development programs with German companies, with European companies, with also local enterprises, because we have to look at the entire value chain. but also with large multinational companies. And here we can significantly actually lower the development risk for those companies, and at the same time bring more transparency and clarity to markets. And this is also an aspect of de-risking. So one example, just to make it specific, is an off-grid ammonia plant in Mexico that can produce green ammonia at competitive prices. And there are other examples in Brazil and other emerging economies where actually this market enabling and innovation role is can really make a difference here. I think there's still a lot of hurdles and also bottlenecks that need to be dealt with when actually planning, getting approval processes with the relevant authorities. But here, this kind of neutral role as a kind of a neutral actor, facilitator, support facility to also the ecosystem is something that is very helpful. And we are very happy to go more into this direction of pipeline development of financeable programs, and to work really hand in hand with the financial institutions, and here also specifically with EIB in view of the Green Hydrogen Fund and other big platforms and projects that are being set up.
Thank you. Piero and colleagues as well. The scale and the duration required for this power purchase agreement, they just don't exist, right? How do you see that market developing? Again, what will be required for it to take off? And have you seen any type of successful case studies of large scale?
Well, we saw some good example, and I would like to mention also for specific users, also for the attendees, that the European Commission set up a database on hydrogen valleys that is taking a path of all the hydrogen valleys all over the world, or at least we have this ambition. And at present, we have 98 hydrogen valleys. We were aiming to reach 100 by 2030, but we are already 98. So, this gives an idea how this vision is expanding. And many of them are in the global south. And I would like to mention 3 of them, also taking into account that, unfortunately, this is right to say, many of them remain on paper. So we have to give a follow-up to update what is happening for the single experiences. But I would like to mention specifically the one in the north of Chile, this one in the Antofagasta Hydrogen Valley. And this project is aiming to distribute green ammonia to the Chilean industry and the off-takers in other world regions. At full capacity, the Volta project will produce 300 tons per day of hydrogen to be transformed in green ammonia. Another example I would like to mention is the Central Queensland Hydrogen Hub in Australia, going to South Pacific, that is aiming to export renewable hydrogen via carriers to Asia, including Japan and Singapore, and to supply large-scale industrial customers in Queensland. They aim by 2030 to reach 800 tons a day of clean hydrogen. And finally, the ambitious program of Saudi Arabia, NEOM, and here the objective is to produce 600 tons of clean hydrogen per day from 4 gigawatt of renewable energy from dedicated wind and solar farms, once operational starting end 2026. In this case, hydrogen will be transformed into green ammonia and then will be exported all over the world.
Yeah. So obviously, and that's a question maybe to the panel, it's going to be my last question. to ship hydrogen around. I mean, if you produce it in Saudi Arabia, if you produce it in Australia, as we know, it has a quite low density. So by sea, it must be compressed, it must be liquefied or converted into some type of derivatives, which obviously is going to have a quite important impact that needs to be taken into account. What type of a challenge that represents, and is the transportation of hydrogen one of the main, I would say, threats towards the production of the good?
So without a doubt, this is one of the major challenges that we're facing with hydrogen. But I think, and how the market is developing right now, the emerging solution is that it will be, at the initial stages at least, transformed into ammonia. And you can use green ammonia as a substitute for many fuels. So for instance, you can run the ships on green ammonia, and you can have engines today that can use both fuel oil and ammonia at the same time, dual fuel engines. And I think this is the big opportunity to really crack this chicken and egg problem that we're facing in hydrogen. Because there is no very substantial demand for green hydrogen and green ammonia, we don't see investments at scale. And because we don't have investments at scale, we don't have the low cost that we need to get the market going. So I think policies that will be favorable and that will be subsidizing a premium for green ammonia, either because there is a price on associated carbon emissions or because there are regulations that require green ammonia, is going to be, at least for the first stages, what will take us through the learning curve. And just as a reminder, I mean, if you look at the last auction that was done from on hydrogen and on green ammonia, the price was at about $900 per ton, which is double what you would get if you used natural gas. So it is a significant difference, but we are still at the very early embryonic stages of this market. And my feeling is that the moment we have the first projects running, and I am optimistic that support that Japan will be providing for green hydrogen will help with that. Japan imports almost all its energy and fuels, and they do pay a high price for them. So it's a good place to look for a first entry point. We're aware that India is working very closely with Japan and trying to figure out how they can create a market. And I think this is the right way forward. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty optimistic about it. I think that we are just at the beginning. Already technologies are developing. I think there's a lot of technological breakthroughs that are about to come, including on electrolyzers. And the silver lining and the good thing about all this is that at the end of the day, the more the world moves into using hydrogen and its products, green ammonia, green methanol, the more these products are coming and substituting fossil fuels, the better it will be for everyone. And this is a huge market. It's a market that very rapidly needs to transform. And I think that hydrogen really is the ultimate way of doing the energy transition, and while maintaining the fuel economy, which, for instance, in the countries where we work is really important. People there live hand to mouth, and you cannot have long-term agreements. You need a fuel system that allows for the variability of demand and allows for a wholesale to retail to take place. Thanks.
Well, Demetrios, I would like to thank you very much, as well as your fellow panelists, Katia Han, Steven, Piero, and Dario. I think it was a really comprehensive, detailed discussions. I appreciate your support, and thanks a lot. I would like now to call on Jean-Christophe Laloux, European Investment Bank Director General of Operations, to close us off.
Thank you, everyone. So I'll take 3 more minutes of your time to give us a few closing remarks. First, I personally am involved with you all in hydrogen, and I thought this is one of the best panels I've attended, to summarize where we are. So what I'm going to do is use this opportunity to give a high-level summary of where we are according to the panel today, and then leave you with just 2 thoughts. So what we've heard today is first of all, and that was given by Belgian Minister of Finance, we've had a reminder that priority goes to energy efficiency before we talk about energy production, and secondly about electrification, and that there is a priority to the combined actions, especially of public sector banks like us. I think she said the priority is right. One of the things we learned today as well, and we were reminded of, is that whatever happens, we will need a backbone to distribute hydrogen under certain applications. We were reminded that the markets are not there yet, and that we have still a lack of demand on a lack of visibility on both demand and offer at this point. That education and skills in hydrogen, like in many other sectors, does play a role, and that we will have to continue to invest in education and skills. That coordination also is required, and especially from us Europeans. Where do we want to put our hydrogen embellies? Not everybody can produce green hydrogen everywhere, and we should really think about this. We had a very interesting, I found, thought about the staggered approach, and for me, really, probably the main idea and conclusion around this is that maybe with green hydrogen we have wanted to run before we can walk. And you can actually feel it from the panel. The discussion has not progressed much over the past 2 to 3 years. So probably indeed what we take from this is that the staggered approach is a good way to look at it. Let's try to green the grey hydrogen that we have. Then we will talk about other types of applications, industrial applications. And the final thing we also learned today is the high correlation in these various application fields, sustainable aviation fuel, steel, fertilizers, the very high correlation between the use of hydrogen, green hydrogen, and the price of electricity. And we learned about the magical 10 euros per megawatt hour in the electricity price to make green hydrogen competitive, which itself then couples with the magical 4 euros per ton or 3 euros per ton that we have as Europeans as a reference for green hydrogen. So I'll stop it here for the summary. I'll leave you with 2 thoughts. Then I will even combining it into one. There is still quite a bit of uncertainty like this, but there are also lighthouse cases. And it was evoked very briefly, but I'm going to lean on my day job, because my day job is not to run conclusions for panels, but to run the banking business of EIB. And the lighthouse application that we have at the moment is H2 green steel. This is an amazing achievement. The Europeans, for once, are trailblazers in the application and the industrial application of green hydrogen. We have actually managed to catalyze, on the financing side, a total investment around 8 billion euros to produce at very large scale flat steel that will be produced based on green hydrogen, and they will be sold to mainly the automotive sector with a market premium of 25%. So yes, there is a case to say, this is not advancing as much as we want, but we should still take comfort in the fact that there are green lighthouse applications in the combined application of green hydrogen with industrial use. And on this thought, I will leave you and thank the attendees for today's panel.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of you. I would like to welcome you to this session on unlocking the potential of green hydrogen. I would like to call to the podium Vice President Fayol.
La ministre n'est pas là? Ah oui, non? Ah oui, ok. Good afternoon. It works? You want one? Okay. I don't need that. I'm very pleased to open this meeting with such fantastic speakers. Thank you for your availability and your interest in green hydrogen, which is nowadays a topic on top of the agenda of leaders and governments around the world, including, of course, inside the European Union, where we have a target to become carbon neutral by 2050. I'm here today with my colleagues Jean-Christophe Laloux and Steven Offiskol to represent the European Investment Bank. For those who are not familiar with the European Investment Bank, we are the lending arm of the European Union, based in Luxembourg, and one of the biggest financial multilateral institutions in the world, also one of the largest providers in climate finance. Climate finance is number one strategic priority for EIB, and it is integrated in everything we do with our activities, with the support of green transition. We do support technological innovation, regional cohesion, as well as social infrastructure. We operate across Europe and also outside Europe with our subsidiary, the EIB Global. When talking about the green transition, EIB recognizes the importance of low carbon gases, including green hydrogen, and this is also reflected in our energy lending policy. Unfortunately, today's hydrogen production is still mostly based on unabated fuel, which results in huge CO2 emissions every year. What is important is to shift this production to clean sources. While governments and the private sector have taken first steps to promote the adoption of hydrogen produced by green sources, let's be frank, these actions at the moment are not enough to align with global climate objectives. This is why, more than ever, we need strong public support and international collaboration. In the last 10 years, EIB has provided 1 billion euros in financing directly linked to hydrogen projects, in particular in research and development, in key components and machinery for hydrogen, as well as hydrogen-related infrastructure. In addition to this, we can offer advisory solutions to hydrogen project promoters to assist them and accelerate the preparation towards potential financing. This combination of technical expertise and advisory services helps bringing investment projects to the market and is a key value added for the promoters that we work with, and it reinforces the value proposition of EIB. But we are not the only player trying to make a difference, and actually for today we have organized a fantastic panel of hydrogen experts from the World Bank, the European Commission, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, GIZ, and the World Economic Forum. Jean-Christophe Laloux, our head of Operation Directorate, will be speaking right after the panel. Before starting with the panel, I have the great honor to introduce to you Mrs. Tine van der Straten, Belgian Minister for the Energy, who is joining us today for a keynote speech. Thank you very much once again, Minister, for your availability, and floor is yours.
Thank you, VP Fael, for this kind introduction. Good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen, here in this pavilion. As we all know, the European Union, through its European Green Deal, aims to become the first net zero continent by 2050. And achieving this ambitious goal will necessitate a large-scale, all-encompassing energy transition. In addition to making great strides in energy efficiency, in addition to the electrification of our energy system through the development of renewable energy production capacity, an important piece of the energy puzzle will be the development of a market for renewable and low-carbon hydrogen. And Belgium, of course, as a European EU member state, we subscribe to this European ambition, and we are convinced that renewable hydrogen will play an important role in the transition toward a net zero society. A very essential aspect to keep in mind, however, is the prioritization of carbon reduction. The end goal itself is not to produce and consume as much renewable hydrogen as possible. The greenest energy is still the energy you don't use. And this is why, as a first step towards a green energy mix, Belgium aims to use its energy as efficiently as possible. And nevertheless, even with substantial improvements in energy efficiency, large amounts of energy will still be needed. We subscribe to the principle electrification first. In all applications where it's possible and efficient, electrification should be prioritized. Hydrogen and other molecules should be used in sectors where electrification is technically or economically unfeasible. I think about heavy industry requiring high heat processes, heavy duty and long distance transport, but also the aviation and maritime sectors. And to facilitate the uptake of renewable and low-carbon hydrogen in these hard-to-abate activities, the European Commission has created a legal framework at a very impressive pace. An important example is the Renewable Energy Directive, which sets specific targets for renewable energy usage, including hydrogen, to reduce emissions across sectors. The directive includes goals for renewable hydrogen production and consumption as part of the EU's decarbonization strategy, such as the industry target of 42% of renewable hydrogen consumption in industry by 2030. An ambitious target, but yet feasible target, and I hope that this panel today will contribute in a way of thinking how that we can achieve this goal. Even with this strong and legal framework already in place, obstacles still prevent renewable and low-carbon hydrogen from replacing fossil alternatives. And a key challenge is, of course, the green premium, the significant additional costs that renewable and low-carbon alternatives to grey hydrogen and natural gas currently entail. And one of the instruments to keep the green premium for renewable hydrogen to a minimum and also to facilitate the production and consumption of the first volumes of renewable hydrogen in the EU is the European Hydrogen Bank. In fact, this name is not so well chosen because you would imagine if you hear European Hydrogen Bank that it is a bank. Of course, it's not a real bank. It is a competitive bidding instrument that is specifically designed to provide financial support for renewable hydrogen production within Europe. And the results of the first auction that was held by the European Hydrogen Bank highlight a discrepancy within Europe between regions where renewable hydrogen can be produced competitively and those with large industrial sectors, which are impacted, of course, by the goals set forth in the Renewable Energy Directive. So there is a little balance or unbalance, a new balance that we need to strike. And this is, of course, where the hydrogen backbone comes in, the European hydrogen backbone. Over the next 15 years, a European network of hydrogen transmission pipelines will be developed to enable the transport of hydrogen from competitive production regions to areas with large demand clusters. I think about Belgium, of course, with its large industrial manufacturing base, but also, of course, Germany with a very alike industry, and of course also the Netherlands. The Belgian hydrogen backbone, which is as of today in a planning phase, will be an integral part of this European backbone. The Belgian backbone will connect to all our neighboring countries, to France, to Germany, to the Netherlands, and also to Luxembourg, so that we can create really an interconnected market, which, and I'm convinced, if we have this interconnected infrastructure, that will help the market to take up and to give a clear signal that we need this large amount of molecules. The rollout of this interconnected hydrogen backbone will, of course, take time. But the need to decarbonize our economies is absolutely urgent. And for this reason, the Belgian hydrogen backbone will also connect our strategically situated ports to the largest industrial cluster in Europe. And by doing so, Belgium is positioning itself to become the hydrogen import and transit hub for northwestern Europe. That's why we have designed in our country a hydrogen import strategy that is linking not only Belgium to its neighboring countries, but also linking Belgium to the North Sea, but also the shipping route to create a hub for which that we can connect to regions outside Europe. The connection of the hydrogen backbone to our ports, for example, Antwerp, Bruges, but also Ghent, will allow that we import renewable molecules from overseas, from countries endowed with renewable capacity and aiming to export that renewable energy to Belgium, but not only to Belgium, to the broader European economy. Because the infrastructure we are planning, that we are designing today, is not meant to be a Belgian story only, but a truly European one. As we all have learned the hard way during the energy crisis, it is infrastructure that saved us throughout the energy crisis, and it's infrastructure that will prepare us for a resilient energy future. And this highlights how the energy transition, but also the uptake of renewable hydrogen, is a very significant component that has multiple positive implications. It is not only about a climate imperative, but it's also an economic security, an economic imperative. It's about competitiveness. It's about keeping our industries here in Europe. You can lose your heavy industry only once. When they are gone, they are away, they are not coming back. And so that's why I'm very happy to give this kickoff speech here today, because what you are discussing in the panel later today is about a resilient future, economic future to the European Union in general, and not for the European Union alone, but interconnecting throughout the world and to create a real sustainable partnership overseas, so that we can both have a beneficial partnership that can it can be a very integral part of this fight against climate change and keeping the 1.5 degrees within reach. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. My name is Derek Baraldi. I'm the head of sustainable finance at the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has been active in the field of building up sector transition pathways for multiple heavy industries, building a network of industrial clusters, reflecting on financial mechanism, policy recommendations, and demand signaling on the topic of heavy industry transition. I would like to call on the stage the panelists for today. Stefan O'Driscoll, Head of Environment, Climate and Social Office Division, EIB Project Directorate at the European Investment Bank. Katja Anne-Kammerer, Director GIZ, Commissioning Parties, Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit. Piero Venturi, Mission Director of the Clean Hydrogen Mission of Mission Innovation European Commission. Dario Ligutti, Director of Sustainable Energy at the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe. and Demetrios Papatanasio, Global Director for the World Bank's Energy and Extractive Global Practices. Thanks a lot for joining us today. It's a real pleasure having you. Stefan, let me start with you with regards to the role of the European Investment Bank in supporting and accelerating uptake of green hydrogen. Please. It's good.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much indeed for having me on the panel. I think the role of the EIB as a public bank, and our mandate is essentially to address market failures, and our motto is, particularly over the last few years, become one of lending, blending and advising, is to really try and help overcome some of the risks and challenges that scaling up the green hydrogen market faces. We're probably not going to be able to tackle some of the hard-to-abate sectors without doing so, heavy industry and shipping and so on that the Minister referred to. I mean, we all know what those challenges are: electrolyzer technology, credible offtake market, the high upfront costs and so on. So, and there are others, but we actually think in the EIB that blended finance actually has a role to play in this. This is where, as you probably know, we use public funds, essentially grants and so on, to help de-risk projects, risky projects, and to help introduce the flow of capital into the operation, and particularly from the private side. So we think there's real mileage in this, and it's something that we as the EIB are building a lot of experience in. In fact, from the green hydrogen perspective, we're currently managing 2 facilities, I would say at the start of the journey, but they're essentially up and running. I'll maybe qualify that. The first is the Green Hydrogen Fund, which is an EIB trust fund, which has been set up to provide strategic advice and project planning for green hydrogen projects. And that's going to comprise both technical assistance and investment grants. And we've been speaking to the German government about this, and we're likely to have an official launch of that in not too distant future, I would suggest. And then there's the EEDF, which is the European DFI Energy Development Facility, and this is also a facility provided by the European Commission, which is up and running. Again, that's a combination of grants and technical assistance, and thank you to our colleague from the Commission for being part of that. Its geographical focus is essentially sub-Saharan Africa. It covers both private and the public sectors, and importantly, it has very clear eligibility criteria in terms of standards that are used and the types of investments that it can cover. But beyond those, as the VP suggested, we are supporting a lot of green hydrogen projects in any case in the R&D space, and we really are looking to kind of put the bank's muscle behind transformative projects in the sector. And it's important that we're not just looking at the project itself. It's about looking at the full value chain as well, so the production capacity and so on and so forth. So EIB advisory services are really playing a role in this, and I think that's really important, and that's the advisory part of the lending, blending, advising. And what we can do is actually offer really good financial and technical advisory, and I think this is what's really required to kind of take some of the risk out and help the promoters.
Thanks a lot. Katja Ann, on your side, as a technical cooperation agency of the German government, GIZ, obviously you help promote the green hydrogen agenda. What kind of support do you offer to partners to overcome these obstacles and challenges that Stephen has outlined?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here on this panel with our distinguished speakers. So in our view, it's of central importance, but it also is, of course, challenging that we really need a speedy and also at the same time sustainable ramp-up of the green hydrogen markets locally. And the Minister has been speaking about the European Union, but also internationally. And here I'm speaking about the 120 countries that we are active in, so our partner countries, developing countries. So value chains have been mentioned by Stevens. Those value chains really have to be developed. So because to link also the more advanced industrial economies with their need for green hydrogen, with the emerging and the developing economies with their resource potential for cheap renewable energy, and thus also for green hydrogen. I would say that the necessary technologies are more or less there. Yeah? So we have the technologies. Of course, there will be advances in the near future. That's great. But despite the existing technologies, the markets are not yet there, and this is something we really have to look into. So we miss a critical mass of physical supply of green hydrogen and its derivative, and we desperately need a reliable long-term demand and takeoff, stronger and more robust prices, price signals, etc. And what is also needed is a pipeline of bankable and investment-ready projects. We feel that there should be much more speed in this area. So what we do as GIZ in green hydrogen is we help actually to develop these markets and the underlying new value chain. So we work closely with our partner countries. As I said, we are present in the countries. We work with the partner governments, very often embedded actually in the line ministries, and to really plant the necessary seeds and develop the opportunities also jointly. We do this on behalf of the federal German government, but closely linked to Germany's and the EU strategies for green hydrogen development, and also the emerging import strategies. So this is closely linked. And so we pave the way actually currently in over 40 countries worldwide, Asia, Latin America, actually in Chile, we work on behalf of the European Commission. So we're very pleased to do that as well. Then Africa, West and Central Asia. And then we really also support the development of the necessary renewable energy capacities in the partner institutions. We advise, for example, on aspects such as sustainable water desalination, then the technology transfer that is needed on local and global sustainability criteria for this new market and those technologies. But besides all these more, like I would say, techno-economic aspects of green hydrogen economy, we see also another demand emerging. So when the green hydrogen opportunities become a cornerstone of the bigger project of a green transition, this is the way things will move. And we see in countries such as Namibia, for example, or Mauritania, the opportunity for new national development paradigms and the path towards integrating that in the national economy. But what is needed here is not only the technical, economical part, but you also need skills. You need a skilled workforce to deliver to these new markets and models. So education is needed, skill development. There's a lot of talk here at COP on green skills development, and I think this is something where we can actually play a role and support this. So all of this is like a joint effort on the path to a new transition, a just transition, away from the old, but also working towards a new model of growth that makes then also business sense for the investments, for more development and prosperity. And we, as GIZ, we hope to be a strong partner in this development.
Thanks a lot. So we spoke about the role of the EIB. We talked about GIZ. Let's open the door to the field of technologies. Piero, the research and development priorities differ from a country to another. There are multiple paths and differences. What are they from your perspective, and where can you see the biggest opportunities? In addition to that, can you please remind us about the role of the clean hydrogen mission?
Yes, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. Well, a few words on the Clean Hydrogen Mission. Clean Hydrogen Mission is one of the missions of Mission Innovation that is a catalyzer of activities for more than a decade, catalyzer of activities in clean energy, where we have all the key players all over the world. We have more than 20 countries that are working together in clean energy. And Clean Hydrogen Mission is one of them, is co-led by the European Commission, US, UK, Australia and Chile, just to give you an idea. And what is our target? Our goal is to reach by 2030 the final production price of $2 per kilo of hydrogen. Well, I know this is ambitious, it's very ambitious, also taking into account that this is depending on other factors that are not under our control, at the price of electricity, the price of logistics, but we aim to reach it. Well, we base our activities on 3 pillars. The first one is R&I, to align R&I priorities all over the world to find synergy, to find opportunities to work together. The second one is to work on the full chain from production, transport, storage, till the end use, till the what we called hydrogen valleys. The Americans, they define them hydrogen hubs, but it's the same concept. And we work together to set up hydrogen valleys all over the world. And the third point is concerning the scale-up of the hydrogen economy, both in the northern hemisphere, but mainly in the